From garage sales to thrift store aisles, we hunt for treasure, stacking them in piles. Hustling hard, making deals all day, flipping finds, turning profit our way. Pure Hustle Podcast guides our quest, learning tricks to be the best. On eBay we make our name, reselling dreams, winning the game. Pure Hustle Podcast guides our quest, learning tricks to be the best. On eBay we make our name, reselling dreams, winning the game.
Happy New Year and welcome to Pure Hustle Podcast. I'm Mike.
And this is Orlando, and we're on episode 431. This is another live, kind of long, kind of not long form podcast, but we wanted to keep it real and be consistent and dropping episodes for you. So we're here just before New Year's.
That's right. So we're going to be, if you're again listening to this on the podcast side, this aired on Monday live on YouTube. So we're going to be dropping this on Monday. As soon as we're done recording it, it's going to be up on the podcast. So if you missed it, make sure you come on over, hit the bell notifications, the subscribe, the like, all of those things, so you don't miss the lives on YouTube. But, you know, people are traveling. People are going to be up late tomorrow night. So I figure, you know, podcast in the morning on Wednesday morning isn't the ideal. So we'll let you get it in now. One last Pure Hustle podcast of 2024. Do you realize that, Orlando? This is the last episode of 2024.
No, it is wild. Now, my question for you is, are you a stay up till midnight kind of guy? Are you like, nah, I'm done with those festivities?
No, so we used to, once I had kids and I was in California, we used to celebrate like the New York New Year's, because then it was like 9 o'clock. You stayed up till 9 o'clock, you did your thing, go to bed, and that was already super late. But now that I'm on Central Time, it's only like an hour. If I did New York New Year's, we'd be staying up till 11. So yeah, I think we're just gonna like do a little fun thing before the kids go to bed, and then when they wake up, we'll just be like, it's a new year, happy new year, you know. So yeah, it's not midnight anymore. Who stays up till midnight?
I still do. Well, I do on the daily, but I will go for New Year's. So it'll be good. It'll be good. I don't know. I love this season. I love right now. Like, it's been a good Q4. Sales came through. Sales are still coming strong, and kind of just enjoying, right, some of the fruits of our labor. We've talked about that before. You know, it was a good month. It was a good, I would say, 2 months. And I expect January is going to be another good month. And so, you know, just we wanted to be here. Let us know in the comments, how are things for you in Q4? We're going to share some hustles of the week later on in this episode. So if you want to share something that's sold for good money, hey, let us know in the chat. We'd love to share it here on the podcast. So this episode is going to be about, you know, lessons that we learned throughout the year. And I got to tell you, this year I learned lessons that I didn't want to learn, but they were good. Like, I needed to hear them. I needed to apply them. And then just talk about maybe, you know, what we're looking forward to in the coming year. So Mike, what do you think? You think reselling is still a good thing just this last year?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to think about just overall, is reselling still like a viable alternative career choice for people? Yeah, absolutely. I think it is. And I think it's still a very powerful tool for a side hustle. In fact, I think it's probably one of the best. You know, like I said, I know people who've done Uber Eats and who've done Uber and who've done, you know, donated plasma and all the various ways of like trying to make an extra couple $100. And to me, reselling is the one that you really have the most control over. You actually are able to scale as necessary. And there are going to be dips and there's going to be ups and downs. But I think that even through 2024, as a lot of us experienced dips partway through the year, that if you stuck it out, like you said, Q4 turned out to be a good Q4. And it's like anything, like if you're following something like the stock market and you're just following like, hey, it's up, it's down. So maybe I should just sell and be done with, you know, stocks forever. Well, you'll never win. Like, it's always an up and down. And the people who win are those who are in consistently. And so I think that 2024 showed us, yeah, there's going to be downs. A lot of us were living on the high of 2020, and how much money we were able to make reselling then. But I think through 2024, for those who stuck around, who are still watching our show and saying, yeah, I still resell. Yeah, I think it's still a thing for sure.
It's kind of interesting. We've gone dark on social media for like a little while, probably for like 2 months, right? We've still been dropping the podcast every week, but kind of took a step back. Mike's life got really busy and I really got super busy. And, it's one of the things we'll talk about later on, but I figured out I couldn't do everything, but this is what I enjoyed. So in the last week, there's been some downtime. And so I've been on the YouTubes and I've been pulling up some reselling videos, and I've been back on social media, just kind of like, looking through and seeing what's going on. And there's a lot of new resellers again, right? There's a lot of people that are jumping on. There's people that are climbing in subscribers, except for us. But there's a lot of people that are growing their YouTube channels. But I look at this and I go, these are people that are making it happen at a time when I would say a lot of people throughout the last 2-3 years after the pinnacle of that era in 2020, a lot of people were kind of like, oh, reselling gonna end up going down and things are gonna get harder. And there's some truth to the fact that it got more difficult, but there are people that are still killing it, right? There are people that are still making good money, whether it be full-time or part-time. And again, I share this with people all the time. When I run into people at church, or I run into people, just when I'm out sourcing or just at an event and we start talking. And one of the best conversations is when I can tell somebody, it seems like you're struggling a little bit. If you just went to like a garage sale or went to a thrift store, maybe catch up on some YouTube videos, you might be able to make, $200, $300, $500 a month by only putting in maybe 10 hours. If maybe you could do that in 5 hours, depending on what you source. And hearing from those people later on going, hey, Orlando, remember that one time we were talking about reselling and you had shared with me this? And they're like, yeah, we just started doing this. And next thing you know, my wife and I were able to start, going on date nights. We're able to pay on some vacations. And it's like, wow, like this is still happening, right? This is still a thing. And I anticipate, this whole year is the end of the year, especially, is going to reflect into this next year where there's going to be more opportunities. Yes, sourcing is going to have to be a little bit different, and we'll talk about that in the new year. But I would say the opportunity to pick up something for $1 and still flip it for 50 or $100 or $5 or $10 or 20 or 30 and 10x it's still out there.
Yeah, I would say like one of the things that 2024 showed us is being able to adapt is the key to growth, right? Like your business is not going to grow if you're not willing to adapt. And I mean, I think we even see that with you. I mean, I don't want to pick on you, but you definitely were, you sold more this year. You're a full-time reseller. So your experience reflects a little bit more than mine. That's just a part-time reseller, but you kind of had your way of doing things. And it wasn't until you started adapting some of your systems and how much you were sourcing and like how you were doing your listings and the ending listings and selling similar. And it took adapting before things really kind of started kicking up and moving forward. And that's kind of almost like micro level things if you think about, but then there's macro level adaptations too, where people have to shift entire markets that they're selling in. Like, hey, I used to sell clothes and I've had to move out of clothes and move to something else. Or I used to source this one store and that store is no longer the hot spot it was. Now I have to source another one. Or change the way I source. Maybe it's now Facebook Marketplace, and I've got the things that I'm targeting there. So if you're willing and able to adapt, you're going to make it. It's like the old metaphors and analogies of like of a tree. A tree that's like really, really rigid is going to break in the wind, or a branch that's going to break in the wind. Whereas if there's some flexibility, like life in a tree, where like the branches still move, the wind isn't going to impact it so much. So when you hit those hard times of reselling is really down, well, if you're able to adapt and move and bend a little bit with it, you're going to weather those storms way better.
Yeah, and to give an example, one of the areas that everyone's going to have to adapt is next year. If you guys haven't caught the news with eBay, is that I'm sure it's been all over social, but eBay is now putting conditions on clothing. So before it used to be like books, right? Books would be like acceptable, good, very good, like new. Well, now they're doing that with clothing, right? They're doing 3 categories. I think it's fair, good, like new. I don't know. I haven't. Like I've read about it, but I don't remember exactly the categories. But that's gonna mean like a lot of us that sell clothes are gonna have to adapt, right? We may pass on things now, just in case if it's a vintage, it's still gonna sell with holes, okay? But there's a lot of items now that you are gonna be, put to task. I'm not gonna be able to get away with has cosmetic wear throughout and be able to put like, like new, right? Or put good, right? I'll have to put acceptable or fair, whatever the judgment call is on that. And so, yeah, adapting is huge. And that's one of the things I want to talk about. I learned
real quick. I want to jump on that
Yeah.
clothes thing real quick. One just probably quick tip on that is, I mean, the booksellers kind of already have this down. Each store has their own little like rubric almost that they use. And I think that if you're a clothes seller, you're going to have to do the same, and it's going to save you time in the long run. And you could probably use something like ChatGPT to make one for you. But to have very specific, like what does excellent mean? What does like new mean? What does fair mean? What does so if figure out all the categories and then have like specific things. So you could say like, oh, if it has holes, it automatically falls into this category at the highest. And if it has stains, then it's in this category. And if it doesn't have that, but it's stretched, or, you have your categories and you've got a rubric set. So it's very easy for you to determine. And then you're consistent in your own policies. So like when somebody gets it, like you have it posted on there, like here's what fair means.
Because even here, like, so I pulled it up, and starting January 23rd, 2025, according to this story, this may be in the UK. I know eventually it's coming to the US sometime in 2025. You never know with eBay. eBay says it'll do it this day, and the next, it's like 6 months later. So on pre-owned, it's going to be fair items with significant visible imperfections and signs of wear. Pre-owned good items showing moderate signs of wear with minor flaws. Like what does that mean? Like one person's minor flaw is a major flaw. Right?
Well, and that's why I think if you had it for your own, if you had kind of almost your own rubric for your business, like you just post that in there, then like, I mean, when I buy used books all the time, and you don't always know, like they might say this is used acceptable. And then you read what their acceptable means. And it says things like maybe missing dust cover, may have markings throughout, no major markings or page rips. Like, so like they have their own rubric. So I know looking at it, like I might get one because I mean, they sell so many books that they're not taking the time to list everything on there. So still taking good pictures, still explaining stains and stuff, but just for selecting the category, like, hey, if I'm selecting, fair, then to me, this is what minor cosmetic problems
that's
are.
good. I agree.
Like I've clearly stated it. So if somebody sees, like, to me, this is what I think minor is.
Yeah, I mean, when I look at excellent is items previously worn, but with minimal signs of wear or flaws. Right. And, some persons wear, like some person, a pull on a shirt might be a huge deal. Right. But if you outline it, like you said, that's going to go a long way. So I think that's good wisdom. So we'll see how that turns out. But yeah, adapting. And for me, the adapting this last year was pricing. So I recognized I got lazy, that I had priced things once. And I said, I'm never going to look back at this again. And what ended up causing, I think it's one of the reasons my sales slowed down. I think the major reason was that promoted listing debacle that happened to me back in April. But, I'm looking at things and I'm like, wow, like, why did I price it so high? Like, why is a Robert Graham shirt, like, why do I have that listed for $120? And I look at comps and they're only selling for like $50, right? And that's because that was Robert Graham, 2017 to 2020 when I sourced some of those shirts, right? Or even my Harley stuff or whatever it was. So make sure you're aware, like this next year, like pricing. And here's the thing, pricing may go up, right? That you could have the other effect where there's more demand of certain items and prices go up. So like the card market might change, right? It's taking a dip, but it may go back up. So just be aware of that. All right, now buying. Okay, this is a lesson I learned. I'm sure no one deals with this, but buying got out of hand for me. It was just obnoxious. Like, again, I have shared this openly on the podcast, and maybe that's why we haven't hit 10K subscribers, but I have not sourced in like 2 months. I've just been listing what I already have, and I've been sourcing from death piles. And I have so much still, like so much. Like I will be moving here pretty soon. So the question now is, do I try to list everything in my death piles? Do I now sell it to another reseller? Do I donate? I'm not sure what to do, but it wasn't until I stopped sourcing and took the time to look at my inventory that I went, this is crazy. Like I'm throwing away money. I mean, I've probably threw away hundreds of dollars I could have made had I either listed right away or been more selective about what I sourced. Now, some things I couldn't help. Sometimes you get those hauls where it's like, hey, I'll give you all this for a good price, but you have to take everything, right? So I take everything, and I have a lot of those everything items. But I'm also careful because sometimes those everything items, when you start looking through, there's something that that person missed or you missed that may be very valuable. So I'm a big fan of at least making sure to go through and then figure out what to do. But I think this is what affects a lot of resellers is just they buy too much.
Yeah, I'll never forget when I was first learning videography. One of the guys teaching me told me, like, when you film something, whether you're filming an event, a wedding, something personal, give yourself 24 hours to review the footage and organize it. And I stuck with that for some time, and then there were times where I didn't, and I realized I'm still going through some like old memory cards and stuff that have like footage from a event that I meant to make a video for, and it's like, oh, that was now 4 years ago, and I never did anything with it. Because if it sits for too long, you don't do anything with it. So I think if you were to be kind of realistic and say, I mean, I know there's some people who their goal is whatever they purchase that day, they come home, they list that day, they're trying to have it sold by the week. Like, there's people who are really that intense. But I think if you were to even just say, like, I'm going to have this inventory listed or something done with it within, I don't know, maybe 48 hours from the time I purchase it, that would kind of rein you in with what I'm purchasing. Am I purchasing too much at one time? And of course, there's going to be exceptions. Like, hey, I just had a huge lot where I bought like 10,000 items because it was a killer deal, and it's going to take me a month and a half to get through it all. Like, that could happen. But I think in the, like, on a regular basis, if you were to, like, I mean, because the reality is consistent systems drive consistent results, right? Like, if you are consistent with how you do things, you're going to have consistent results. And if you're being inconsistent with how you're managing what you list, like, if all you're doing is going to a garage sale, buying a bunch of stuff, and then you come home and only list your favorite things and then throw the rest into a death pile to get to later, you're never going to get to those things. And when you do, you've forgotten, maybe the markets have changed. Whereas if you were to say, like, whatever I buy within 48 hours, I'm going to have this stuff listed. Maybe it's 72 hours. I don't know. Like, everybody's system is going to be different, but if you have some kind of system in place like that, I mean, that could totally change the game for you.
Well, hey, real quick, I want to shout out Hustleman in the chat and also Zezo Pug 3. Thanks for joining us. And we got a comment from Zezo Pug says, I store my inventory by month. Go through any remaining inventory on that shelf when it hits 1 year. Toss, donate most of what's left. So similar and a few special items that I want to keep longer. And there you go, right? That keeps you actually, I would say, on your toes when sourcing. That, hey, I may be in it for the long game, but I'm not in it for like a decade, right? This has to sell within 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, year tops. And especially the way eBay is now, like, you do not want to have stuff that's going to be in your inventory, I would say, longer than 90 days, maybe a year tops, depending on what it is. Because, yeah, I did sell stuff in Q4 that I've had for a couple of years in my store for very good money. But at the same time, like, I could have, I could have used that real estate to store other items. Maybe I could have sold it at a lower price and had that cash flow. Like, you just got to be aware of those things. So no, I appreciate that because, yeah, things can get really out of hand with the buying. All right, hey, before we move on, one good way that you can start off in this next year is finding a way to do your bookkeeping that is easy. And one of the ways is My Reseller Genie. We've been friends of My Reseller Genie, bookkeeping software made by resellers for resellers. And if you want to get started, it's Pure Hustle is our code, and it'll give you 15% off the first month. Again, use our code Pure Hustle. You get 15% off the first month for My Reseller Genie. And listen, you want to get started right away. I don't think, due to the depth of this podcast, since we're not going to go super long, I will say one of the things I did learn in 2024 was how bad it is if you wait to the end to do your bookkeeping, right? You could be spending weeks. I spent weeks, and then I spent months, and it was a forever thing. And, you lose sleep and you're like, oh man, how much do I have to pay? And if you have your bookkeeping together, like, you maximize how much either A, you don't have to pay, or B, how much you get refunded depending on your stage in life. So make sure you get that My Reseller Genie, 15% off the first month with code Pure Hustle.
Yeah.
All right. Do we want to, let's talk one more and then we'll go to our hustles of the week.
Let's do it.
I don't know, Mike, do you feel like, so reselling, like you and I, when we started the podcast, I feel like we were like guns blazing, like, 100% of the day was like all reselling. You only had one kid at that time, right?
Yep.
And they're a baby at that time too. I don't think they were a toddler yet, right?
Yeah, no, my oldest was just a baby at the time. Yeah, he was little. Yeah, I remember this. But even with that, one of the books we were doing, you and I don't want to say we got an argument, but we had a
No, it's
disagreement.
fine.
We had well, I mean, it wasn't an argument really. It was just a disagreement on
Yeah.
how much effort you could put into something. And you kind of had the mentality at the time that you could give 100% to everything. And my thought was like, well, you could give 100% of the time you allot to something, to that thing, but the reality is, like, you only have so much time in the day, you only have so much energy. Something is going to give, right? And that's okay. Like, you're making those decisions all the time. There's always a cost benefit analysis. Like, if I spend this time with family, then I'm losing it here, but if I spend this thing here, then I'm losing it with my family. Like, there's always a give and take. And as I get older, as I have more kids, as situations in life change, I become more busy at work. You definitely realize that you can only do so much, and so you got to be very strategic with how you're attacking reselling, right? Like, I think that there are certain areas in reselling, and going back to the idea of buying and sourcing, that's a good example. There are certain areas in reselling that are going to have more of a benefit for you. And then there's other areas of reselling that are just fun to do. And a lot of times we allocate more of our time and energy to things that aren't necessarily going to be the most important. Like, we were just teaching my son the other day about the concept of eat the frog, if you've got, a big, hairy, ugly frog and you have to eat it first thing in the morning, so the rest of the day is fine, and the whole point of that analogy is do those difficult tasks first. And that, to me, is, I think, is really critical. A lot of times resellers, and not just resellers, but people in every aspect of their life, they don't really plan and focus on the things that need to be focused on, right? And I think that I kind of wrote something thinking about this new year. I have a word for every year. My word for 2025 is build, because I feel like I can apply that to a lot of areas of my life, like build physically, mentally, spiritually, financially. Like, I'm building. And I kind of wrote out something for reselling, and I wrote, your profit is built in the plan, earned in the hustle, and sealed in the execution. And I think the part that a lot of people struggle with is the plan portion, right? Like, a lot of people, they kind of have just like a vague, I want to make more money reselling, but they don't get into the nitty gritty of like, okay, what is that going to take? Like, you can't do everything. So you need to figure out, how much time do you have? How much time do you need to spend listing and sourcing? How much time do you need to spend organizing and packing? And if you have a good, solid plan built in place, because you're going to fall to the level of your planning. So, you can't do everything. You can only do so much of anything. And so you got to make sure you're focused in on the most important things. And I love New Year's, because when you have a new year, it gives you a chance to reflect on the old year and say, where were my strengths? Where were my weaknesses? How can I improve this next year? And that could be something you do on a micro level, daily, weekly, monthly. But a year is just such a big scheme thing you can look at and just say, okay, how did 2024 go? I could look at my books. I could look at my profit. I can look at the time that I spent. Where were my leaks? Where can I, kind of shore this ship up a little bit more and make sure it's on track?
No, I agree. And it's one of those things that, when we started the podcast, it was all that hustle culture, right? That was like the thing, right? Hence we got the name Pure Hustle Podcast. We still believe in it. I still believe in hustling and making things happen. But at the same time, you were right? You might be right. You were right. And
I think it's that's right.
Is it that's right? That's what it is.
If you say you're right, then that's you don't really believe it. But if you say that's right, then you believe it.
Okay. What's crazy to me? Chris Voss, Never Split the Difference, one of the key books. I would say it's one of my top 10 like business books I ever read for my entire life. But Chris Voss is everywhere now. Now, I don't know if it's my YouTube recommended, but like, I see that guy everywhere now. And so I'm kind of, I kind of like the fact that we weren't like,
we were early.
We were like 4 years early, right? With Never Split the Difference. So if you haven't read it, definitely check that out. It is in our Amazon link. So you can check out our Amazon link and purchase it there. But it's especially this year. So this year, I've taken on other responsibilities. I'm working with the school, and I'll share more of those plans as the new year develops. But I thought like I could keep going 100% in reselling, right? But that just wasn't the case, right? It was like, and luckily, I have enough inventory. I have a big enough store, and I know enough that I can still keep making the same amount of money while devoting way more time to helping out the school than I would have been, several years ago. But at the same time, like, something gave. And one of the pieces that gave was social media, right? That's one of the things I want to encourage everyone. Like, we have made episodes, and I still believe in that social media will definitely help you in reselling. But make sure you understand that once you open that door of reselling, if you really want to be good, right? And again, we're saying this from a place of we're not experts, but I do believe if Mike and I were like hardcore and we dropped 2 to 3 videos every week that were not podcast related, they were like how to do this, how to do that. And we might start doing that in the next year. But if we did that and then we posted every single day on every single platform and we did YouTube shorts and we did all this, that yes, our channel would grow exponentially. Right. And I look at like Commonwealth Picker and I look at Cha-Ching King. I saw today that he has 70K subscribers, right? Former head of school who became a full-time reseller and now he's a YouTuber, right? But he put in that effort, but he had the time, right? People have the time. And Mike and I, I feel like Mike and I are very family oriented, and not saying these other creators aren't, but Mike and I very much love spending time with our family. And for if Mike and I had to make a decision to one day give up the podcast or spend more time with our family, I think we would just spend more time with the family. We love you guys, but we love our family too, right? That priority comes first. But fortunately, due to all the awesome people that support us on our Patreon and due to the fact that Mike and I just love what we do, like we're still dropping episodes every week. But yes, a certain component of my reselling, and I would say social media wasn't a reselling component. We definitely made a lot of money from social media because it connected us to a lot of people, right? Connected us to a lot of deals, connected us to a lot of people with great ideas, connected us with just a lot of opportunities. But be aware of that, right? In this 2025, if you want to go down that road, like I would say, give it your all, like go 100% into your reselling and social media. And if you're going to go part-time, realize that you're going to have to give something up to make that happen. But that's kind of how I go. And that's the beauty of reselling, is that you can be flexible in what you want to do. All right, let's talk about a couple hustles of the week here. We're going to do 2 because of the shortened time frame here, but we have some good ones here.
All right, here we go.
Come on, hustlers. It's the freaking hustle of the week.
Yeah. All right. Our first hustle of the week comes from Suck It Up Buttercup from the Discord. So it says, "This is my biggest flip yet. I'm a cast iron user, not a collector, but I was aware some of them go for good money. I was previewing an estate sale last month and spotted this pan. Didn't know it was a Bolo till I looked it up. I paid $25 for it. It was a Wapak number 5 Indian head logo skillet, and it was in amazing condition. I stripped it and reseasoned it. Comp show sales of the same size pan in the same condition for between $300 and $1,200. I listed it last month for $1,200 and have had lots of watchers, but no bites. Finally got an offer for $750 and accepted it. This is the kind of sale that makes reselling so addictive. Holy cow, from $25 to $750. And you put in work. Like I use cast iron almost exclusively now. I haven't got my wife on board. She still uses the, no stick pans and stuff, but to strip a cast iron pan and to reseason it, like that takes work. It takes time and effort and elbow grease and then a bunch of time in the oven. And so you actually put in work, like, refurbishing this thing, or like, getting it up to the best quality it can be. And not every item is worth doing that for. But man, if you're able to get $750 off a $25 item, an extra few hours of elbow grease is definitely worth it. What an incredible hustle of the week.
What I like is that they spotted it in the ad and it was still there, right? Sometimes when I see things that are worth money in an ad, I'm like, it's not going to be there. But I tell you, if you're there early, you can still get it. I've had multiple times that I still was able to pick that up. So it's great. All right, now, secondhand solo, it's kind of funny. So secondhand solo here says, I barely have enough time to just run my eBay store. Okay, you're a busy person. But here's the funny thing, secondhand solo. How did you know to get in the chat just before we're going to share your hustle of the week? Coincidence? I think not. All right, secondhand solo. So here's your hustle of the week. Good friend from San Diego, by the way. I'm going to see you outsourcing sometime. Last Saturday, came across an insane haul of live Grateful Dead tapes. Okay, so let me give you context. Like back in the 60s and 70s, people would like go to these Grateful Dead concerts with like these huge microphones and they record them. And then they would make these tapes from these. And you would think, oh, these tapes, like you would see them at a garage sale and you're like, oh, they're not worth anything, right? Because they're just like copied from a concert or something. But there's actually money in these tapes. I did not know that. Only reason I know is because I caught a video on social media about it and I was like, interesting. So I came across a haul of Grateful Dead tapes, 1981 and 1990. The guy wanted $40. I countered with $30 and ultimately paid $20 for everything. Wait a second.
Now
The
that's
guy
some
wanted-
negotiating right there.
What? I don't understand. The guy wanted 40. You countered with 30 and then ended up with 20. So did the guy go, you know what? How about 20 after you countered with 30? I'm trying to understand. Let's go in the chat. Solo.
Maybe if you're able to point out some like, oh, this has this flaw and this has maybe not. And they're like, okay, fine. You're like, at 30, I think it's still a little. That's good negotiating right there.
I know he goes, LOL, I know, straight savage. But really, I wasn't sure what I had yet. And that's the thing. If you don't know what you're picking up, it's okay to like get the lowest bottom dollar that you want because you're taking a risk. All right, Ted, there was 89 tapes and a Napa Valley wall case. So Napa Valley wall case is kind of like those cases that you put on a wall with a little shelving that you can put tapes in, I think. Maybe on a wall, maybe. I don't know. Anyways, it's wooden, okay? Listed 9 lots of 10 at $100 and $50 for the case. A buyer offered me $300 for all of them, and I countered with $600. I'm about to fast nickel, but not that fast. I get to work yesterday, and a sell comes through. Next thing I know, I'm watching 8 lots sell to the same buyer one after another. The first 5 sold at 25% discount, then 3 more at full price. Ironically, the Napa Valley case sold to another buyer at the same time, just over $700 in less than 10 minutes. Later that night, the last listing sold to a third buyer, also at full price. After fees, cost of goods, plus making a bit on shipping, I cleared $696 on a $20 buy. Needless to say, this find definitely made my Christmas.
Nice.
So there you go. Okay. Secondhand Solo respondent said, I low balled him after the fact. So you counted, and I've done this before. So you counted with 30, and they're like, you know what? How about 30 is a little bit too much. How about 20? And sometimes people will do that. I will do that sometimes. Or what I'll do is I'll make the deal, and then I'll see something else that I kind of want. I'm like, hey, can we just throw that in there? And a lot of the times people are like, yeah, they don't care. It's so that's another tactic that you can use at garage sales or wherever you're at. But nice work, Secondhand Solo, because I got to tell you, those tapes very easily, passable. You can, you wouldn't know because all it is a bunch of, tapes that have like people's writing on it, like, concert 1980, whatever, whatever band it is, and you would miss it. There's actually a lot of bands that you can do that with. So there you go. Nice work, Secondhand Solo.
Nice.
All right, Mike, do you have a hustle of the week to share here? Or
yeah, well, I'm definitely not going to do the year. I had like a pretty funny one this week because I've got a whole bunch of board games and the board games that I have for sale. And I've had one that I got years and years ago at a thrift store, and it was like like the memes, like the old memes of like the funny family pictures, like how those were like popular for a while. Well, there's like a funny family picture game, and it's like based off of like those, like all those pictures that were on memes. I don't know what kind of game it was. It was still sealed in package, but I bought it for like 50 cents or $1 at a thrift store. And it's sat for years. And every time I have like a party, like people over for Christmas or people over for, whatever, you pull out different games. And I always look at that one and go, this thing is never going to sell. I should just like pull it out. We should just play it and see if it's funny. And it sold right after Christmas. And so it kind of got me thinking those types of party games are Bolos when it comes to like Christmas time, because people go to a party. Like I can't tell you how many board games I've bought after going to somebody's house. Like imagine I go over to your house, Orlando, we have dinner, you pull out a fun board game that I don't have, we play it, and it's such a fun time as like a group that I'm like, I got to go buy this game. And especially the older games like that they don't make anymore, you just go on eBay. There it is. Bing, bang, boom. So those are the time those games sell. So yeah, I ended up selling it for a little over $20. It wasn't a huge sell, plus shipping. So it was, by the time it's all said and done, I made probably like $18 on it, but it has sat on my shelf forever. And I can't tell me how many times I've almost opened it up. And now I'm kind of glad it's just gone, because it'll never tempt me again. Because it's probably not even that fun of a game.
Yeah. So mine is, so I went on this like buying spree of like Squishmallows. You know what Squishmallows are?
Yeah.
And I at one point I thought, I was looking at comps and I'm like, oh, I can buy these for like $5 and flip it for like 30, 40 a piece. And it was strange because I bought, I don't know, I want to say probably 30 to 40 within the span of a month. I went to a thrift store and I found like they had like 6 in a bag, and the bag was like $8, and I bought like 4 or 5 of those bags. And then I went to a garage sale. I paid like $30 and I got another, and I had a ton of these Squishmallows, but none of them moved. Like, I'm like, what is going on? And this was back in, I would say, like May, June. And this Q4, like a ton of them sold. And I this is just a reminder that sometimes things are really seasonal, right? Like, yeah, maybe Squishmallows or something that are collected year round, but you better bet that like during Christmas, people are gonna want these some of them are discontinued, right? So I sold, for example, an Oakley Wolf one. It was only like 11 inches, it wasn't very big, for $36. I sold a 16-inch Norma the Gnome for $30. I sold another one. Give you one more example. This was a toucan for $54, and it wasn't that big. And I'm like, and I just kept selling these Squishmallows. Now I have all the other Squishmallows. I stopped listing them because I was like, these things don't. So I don't want to flood my store with these. But now I'm like, I wish I had these all listed during Q4. So keep an eye. I would say it's a very selective Bolo. There's one. There's a cat one that sells easily for $50 all day long, and usually that one I am able to flip within a week. But keep an eye. I'm just thankful. This is what I love about reselling, is that as long as you do your research, even though things might not sell right away, they will sell if there has been a market. So that is great. All right, hey, let's say Clay's Closet commented, "This is so cool to actually catch live. I haven't seen one in a couple of years. Always good to see you all. Hope you all both had a great holiday with the family." Hey, Clay, no, definitely remember you. Remember you on the lives too. So thanks for coming on here and joining us this pre-New Year's episode. And thankful for everyone that has those Hustle of the Week. Hustle of the Week definitely keeps us, motivated, right? Recognizing that there are great scores. And Secondhand Solo, that was, I think, your quota of Hustles of the Week for the month, because I think that's your second one. We had one where like you went to a machinist and you bought a bunch of tools.
Yeah, no more Hustles of the Week until next year.
I know. Hey, Tim the Slim hasn't been on here for a while, so I think we're winning there. Hey, by the way, follow him on Instagram. He's been posting a lot on Instagram lately, so that's a good thing, Tim. No, it's Educated Flips is his handle on Instagram. Educated Flips. All right, hey, so real quick before we wrap things up, other things you learned or things you're looking forward to here in 2025?
Yeah, I mean, just going back to that idea of the importance of the plan, and I'm thinking in 5-year chunks. I feel like that's like the easiest way to kind of break things down. Like, okay, where do you want to be in 10 years? Where do you want to be in 5 years? What do I need to do this year to get where I want in 5 years? And I've already kind of mentioned a couple of times in the podcast, so I don't want to, just beat it over and over and over. But I think it's going to be a big part of this next year. Is my goal is to have my house paid off in 5 years. So some of that's going to come from raises I've gotten at work and other, income that I have. But a big part of that is going to have to come from reselling. And so I need to up my reselling about double what it is right now, which means my goal is to have that by the end of the year. So if I can increase, 10% every month, over a month, 10%, 10%, 10%. And by the end of the year, I've more than doubled where I've, started from. And then that puts me on track to have my house paid off in the 5-year mark. And so I'm really excited about 2025, because having that goal and having like a set deadline kind of changes things, because it's like a do or die, right? I need to make this goal. And if I don't, then that's going to make my goal that much harder to make, next month. So having that kind of pressure, because when you don't have that kind of set thing, because as a full-time reseller, you get it, right? Like, because you have a certain amount of money you need to make every month in order to make ends meet. As a part-time reseller, I'm lucky enough that I don't need my reselling money in order to make ends meet. My reselling money is what allows me to pay a little bit extra on the house, to pay a little bit extra on, my student loans and various things like that. So I don't necessarily need to make it. So if there's ever a month where I'm a little bit low, it's not the end of the world. But by having that set, I need X amount in order to make my mortgage payment what I want it to be every month, and kind of treating it like a legit bill that has to be paid. The extra that I'm going to be pouring onto it, it forces you to get work done, right? Like if you don't have that kind of pressure, then you can easily go, I'm going to take it a little bit easy this month. And so I think 2025 is going to be a huge year of growth. Like I said, my word for the year is build. And I'm going to be building financially and building my eBay store every single month in order to get to where I want to be. So I'm really excited. I think it's going to be fantastic.
Nice. So mine is twofold. One is, it was a great reminder this year of how flexible reselling can be, right? You can turn on reselling when you want, and you can turn off reselling, and you can get back, right? You can have those slow months, and you can have those great months, and you can pick up other things, right? You can start, like I said, I'm doing a little bit more, not a lot more education stuff now. But I'm still, reselling is my full-time income. It's what I use to pay the bills. But I've been able to do other things because of flexibility from reselling. And, wherever I'm at in a year or 2 or 10 years from now, I'll always be able to continue reselling or pick up reselling, right? There's always an option. And all the skills that you learn reselling, whether it be, how to figure out price, right? Price elasticity, if you remember that from Econ 101, or how to talk to people, how to negotiate, or understanding, how things change, or I would say even Christmas. Like, I find that I am the best dad I can be at Christmas in previous years as far as buying goes, because I know where to get good deals. I know, when a certain website is upping prices, when they're going to drop prices. I know about shipping. I know how to ship things. Like, there are so many skills that you learn from reselling that you may get in other fields, but I feel like, I don't know, reselling there's multiple levels to reselling, right? You can be that person that does whatnot and does whatnot every single day. You can be that person that never goes live, never has social media, and you can still make a living on reselling. You can be that person that just develops your YouTube channel, and you may not be a great reseller, but you're great at selling your reselling on YouTube, which causes your audience to buy things from you. Like, there's many, many ways you can do that. So really, really, I've learned that reselling is still this amazing vehicle, whether it's something you need to be in temporarily, or something to get you to your next destination, or something that you just end up doing for the rest of your life. Or maybe you're at a stage in life where you're retired and you're kind of like, I don't want to go back to the 9 to 5. I don't want to have to find other ways to make money. And you're looking at, hey, reselling is definitely going to help me to, pay the bills and figure things out. So that has been great. So anyways, make sure that, if you're listening to this podcast and you're new, be encouraged, because there's a lot that you can do. If you've been reselling for a while and you're kind of like, oh, I don't know, this year was tough. Hey, there's those seasons. I had that season and things rebounded. I never thought it would rebound. I thought this was the end, and now I'm like, wow, this is crazy. Like, things are back to where they were. So be encouraged.
Yeah, and I like this this comment by Clay's Closet here. He's talking about some goals he's got. He says, going to come up with an eBay goal. I'm going to start dumpster diving and posting videos and have that income and help get that big and build my confidence. Yeah, so that is I'd love to see other people in the comments below. Right now, before we end this live, if you get a chance, but even if the live is over, post on the YouTube. What are your goals, reselling goals for 2025? What are some things you're going to do really for Clay's Closet to get his videos going for the dumpster diving and using that? Because you can make income from YouTube. It's hard to do, but if you can build that audience and get it going, and use that for other, sources of income coming in, so that you can apply that to your reselling business or other businesses that you have going. That's fantastic. So thanks for sharing your goal. Leave your goals in the below. What is your New Year's resolution, as it were, for eBay? What are you going to accomplish in 2025? And then you'll have a place to come back and look at the end of 2025. Did you do it? Did you make it happen?
And hey, it's going to be a great 2025. And with that being said, make sure you be real,
Be relevant,
and be reselling. Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Peace.